Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming today. So today we're going to be talking about how to hone your social media. Really excited to have Katie Lance here with us. I'm going to let her kind of introduce herself, a bit about her background. I just want to do a quick kind of intro for those who don't know her. I've followed Katie now for years, even back when I was selling, and she's like one of the best kind of on social media I've ever seen. I go to conferences and sessions all the time now with training, and I often find that when I'm going to them, it's kind of stuff I've heard before, and I'm not really getting a lot out of it. But I find with Katie, every time I watch something of hers, that I'm always picking up something new and something that I can actually use, which is great. So I just thought it'd be great to have her out and talk about some of the social media stuff because there's really nobody better at social media than Katie. So why don't we just get her to take it away right away?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. And thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super excited. Thank you so much for the kind words and the introduction. Yeah, I feel like we've known each other online for quite some time, and I think we have a lot of the same philosophies when it comes to social media and getting smarter about how to use social media. So just really excited to be here today. Thanks everybody who is tuning in live. I know we're recording this, so if you're listening to the recording, also, I appreciate it. For those of you who don't know me, I run a social media consulting company. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we consult and train and teach for a lot of the franchises and brokerages in the real estate space. And earlier this year, we published my first book, which is exciting, Get Social Smart. It was a labor of love, without a doubt. I have two kids. I felt like publishing this book was my third child. Uh, Andrew, if you I'm sure at some point you'll you'll understand what that means.
I have
Uh,
one now. She's 7 months.
yeah, see, exactly, right? Time flies. So the webinar today is really about, I'm going to kind of give you guys a sneak peek into what the book's all about. There's 23 chapters in the book. We've got 6 case studies. It's really designed, I was on a webinar last week and somebody said it's kind of like the dummies book for social media. And I take that as a big compliment because I think that's exactly what it's geared for. So whether you're someone who's in the beginning stages of social media or you've been doing this a long time like Andrew and you have, I think you'll get a lot from the book. So I wanted to kind of position this webinar where we give you sort of a sneak peek into at least the first few chapters and really kind of walk through where I think there's some big opportunities for agents and brokers when it comes to getting smarter about how to use social media. So we're going to cover a few things. I'm going to share a few tips on how to cut through the clutter in social media. And let's face it, there's lots of clutter in social media. I feel like every time I go on Facebook, there is it's like a crazy freeway, right, with cars just whizzing by. So there's more noise than ever, and we're going to talk a little bit about how I think about it and how a lot of our clients cut through the clutter, where to start, especially if you're in the beginning stages, or maybe you've started a new platform, maybe you've jumped on Instagram stories or Snapchat or Facebook Live. So where to start. I'm also going to talk about social storytelling. It's a hot topic right now. I think there's a lot of power in telling your story on social media through video, through live broadcasting, through blogging, and I'm going to give you some tips on that. We're going to talk a little bit about how to create a content strategy, and then Facebook, because Facebook is still the #1 social media platform in my mind. There's 2 billion users. Facebook just announced that recently. So we're going to give some tips for that, and then some time for Q&A at the end. So first and foremost, one of my favorite quotes, I can't take credit for it, but Napoleon Hill has said, a goal is a dream with a deadline. And I think when you think about your social media strategy, I think having a goal is one of the most important things, because it's one thing to say, oh, I'm gonna have a Facebook page, or I think I'm gonna try Instagram, or Snapchat, or whatever it might be. But if you don't really have a why behind why you're on these platforms and what the purpose is, then you're sort of just scrambling and just trying something out without really having a strategy. And I'm a big believer that without a strategy, you're just throwing something against the wall and hoping it sticks. So having a plan, having an action plan, I think is really, really key. So in the beginning of the book, we talk about this whole idea of social media and how it's a communications tool. Uh, you know, when you look at the word social media, the first word is social. And I think a lot of times it's easy to be really overwhelmed when it comes to social media. I hear this all the time from agents. And I'm a big believer that as an agent or broker, I don't think you have to be everywhere. I don't think you have to be on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest and every single platform. And I know Andrew and I have talked about this, and I know he agrees as well. You pick one or two that you're really comfortable with, and you go in with those, right? And you make a plan and you make a strategy. But at the end of the day, when done right, social media is, I think, just as important as a phone call, as an email, as texting, and it's just one more extension of how we're keeping in touch with our family, our friends, and ultimately our clients and our prospects. And my philosophy when it comes to social media is to be really intentional, have a plan, don't waste time on things that don't work. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And it's a great place to strengthen relationships and generate leads in business when it's done correctly. This is another one of my favorite quotes from Oscar Wilde, who said, "Be yourself, everyone else is already taken." And I have to say that the agents and brokers that I see getting the most business from social media are authentic. They're really themselves. And I know there's this fine line between being yourself and you don't need to share every moment of your day, right? You don't have to share what you have for breakfast. But there's a value in sharing who you are personally, your passions, your hobbies, your interests. That authenticity, I know it's such a buzzword, but it is really true. Social media is social. So inserting yourself into what you're doing with social media can be really, really powerful. And so there is a lot of clutter. That's not my desk, although my desk is not very clean right now. But you have to have a strategy to cut through the social media clutter. The algorithms are here. And for those of you who don't know, most social media platforms nowadays have an algorithm. So if you're on Facebook and you might have wondered, why am I not seeing all my friends and family? Well, Facebook and now Instagram and Twitter and a lot of platforms have an algorithm, and it's based on how often you like, how often you comment, whose profile you're visiting, whose pages you're going to. And Facebook wants to make, and other platforms also, but especially Facebook wants to make your news feed as relevant to you as possible. They want you to stay on those platforms as long as possible. So, in 2017, it's not enough just to have a lot of likes or a lot of followers. It's really about how do you catch someone's eye and how can you become thumb stopping in the news feed and really stand out from the competition and stand out when you're sort of sandwiched between people's friends and family. And at the end of the day, it's a marathon and not a sprint. The agents and brokers that we see getting the most business from social media are really in it for the long haul, right? And they understand what they're doing now is going to affect their business 3, 6, 12 months from now. What happens a lot of times, I see this all the time, I see agents who come to me and they'll say, I've been doing video, I've got a YouTube channel, or I started blogging last year, but no one's reading my blog, and I'm getting like 20 views on YouTube. Nobody's clicking on my video except like my mom and my best friend. And I always ask, well, how long have you been doing it for? And so often I'll hear, well, a few months, or I started last year. And the thing is, when it comes to social media, and I know, Andrew, you could probably relate to this, is that it's consistency, right? It's consistency over the course of time. And it's a lot like pushing a snowball up a hill, up a hill. And what happens is a lot of people quit right as they're getting to the top of the hill. Because once you get to the top of the hill, that's where the magic happens, right? The snowball comes down the hill and you start getting leads and people emailing you and reaching out to you on Facebook and saying things like, gosh, I see you everywhere and I feel like I know you, and all of that stuff. And that's what happens when you really are consistent over the course of time. So I said this a second ago, but without a strategy, you're just throwing something against the wall and hoping it sticks. So in chapter 2 of my book, we talk really about the nuts and bolts, right? Really how to get started when it comes to a smart social media strategy. And like I said in the beginning, Facebook is still, the #1 social media platform. It's not going away anytime soon. There's lots of rumors about all the teenagers leaving Facebook. Maybe glomming on to more Snapchat or Instagram, but Facebook is still a huge platform. 1 out of 5 mobile minutes are spent on Facebook every single day. And Facebook also owns Instagram, which is growing by leaps and bounds also. So it's a huge place to spend your time on your personal profile, but also your business page. And mobile is a core foundation to Facebook. In fact, for a lot of you right now, if you're listening to this, you might be listening on your mobile device. And most Facebook users are using Facebook on their mobile device. So again, thinking about what does your content look like in the newsfeed? What does it look like when someone's scrolling through their newsfeed on their mobile device? Is your content thumb stopping? And so I think that's something that's really important to think about. So often I'll go to my Facebook feed and I'll see somebody who's written a really long post. You have to click that word "see more" to see more what they wrote, and so often we don't, right? We just keep scrolling, we keep scrolling. So you really want to think about, again, how can you win when there's so much content from friends and family, and again, so much time is really spent in that mobile device. So I just want to give you an example here. This is a really good friend of mine, Lee Arnold. He's also part of our academy. He runs a property management company. And I think Lee is a great example of someone who does social media really, really well. He's really active on his personal profile, and shares a lot of his family and things like that on his personal profile. On his business page, he focuses obviously a lot on his business and his listings and his properties. And this particular video, I love this. He hired a videographer at the end of last year to come out to his home, and he shot this quick sort of thank you video with his wife and his adorable kids, and has put it up on his Facebook business page. It's been up here for since the end of last year, and this video has gotten close to 5,000 views. He's gotten tons of comments and engagement off this one video, and I think it's a great example of spending the time and money and creating pillar content. Right? Pillar content is content that you spent time, money, and resources on that's going to last more than a Facebook post. It's going to last more than a tweet. And video, video is such a huge opportunity. We've been talking about video for years and years, but when you really invest the time, money, and energy in creating video is something that lasts months, if not longer than that. So this is just a great example of not just a video for the sake of selling a property, but really kind of showing who Lee is, kind of giving a sneak peek into his family and what it feels like to work with him. And there's something really magical, I know that sounds corny, but there's something very magical about creating video, because it gives people the opportunity to hear and really see what it feels like to work with you. Most of us don't like how we look on video, we don't like how we sound on video, we're not sure how to do it, so then we don't do it. But I would really encourage you, and we talk a lot about this in the book, of thinking about how video can be a big part of your social media strategy. And in addition to video, social storytelling has really sort of exploded in the last 12 months. So we're seeing apps like Snapchat, Instagram Stories, Facebook Live that are allowing people to create video content and storytelling content easier than ever before. Snapchat and Instagram Stories has allowed us to take quick photos, quick videos that get stitched together into a 24-hour story. And I remember when I first started playing around with Snapchat thinking, gosh, this disappears in 24 hours. But what Snapchat and Instagram Stories, I think, allows a lot of us to do is to give that sneak peek behind the scenes, right? So, for example, one of my good friends who's an agent in the Boston area has told me, she said, Katie, if people want to see the glossy version of me, where everything's perfect, the great filter, they'll find me on Facebook. But if they want to see the real deal and sort of the behind the scenes, they'll follow me on Snapchat. And that's where I think there's a big opportunity. We kind of live in this world where we like reality TV, right? And Snapchat and Instagram Stories, especially in real estate, has given agents and brokers an opportunity to kind of tell the backstory. Facebook Live, I think there's lots of opportunities with Facebook Live. We're going to go more into that in a minute. But this opportunity to create live video content in the moment, where it's live and it's unscripted, it doesn't have to be perfect. There's lots of opportunities, I think, to use Facebook Live, whether you're showcasing something in your local community, maybe a local farmer's market, a local concert, maybe you're giving a sneak peek into a listing with the permission of your clients. Lots of opportunities there, I think, which is really, really fun. I also think delivering the right content to the right people at the right time is really important. So we talk a lot about in our book using things like custom audiences for Facebook ads, retargeting using the Facebook pixel, email marketing, which I think is like the kissing cousin to social media. It's so important, right? Because as much as I love Facebook, we have no idea how long Facebook's going to be around for. So building up your email list, building up content on your own website, and going beyond just boosting a post. I think a lot of agents, when they think about Facebook ads, they think about spending maybe $5, $10, $20 on boosting a post, which is a great place to start when it comes to Facebook. But there's so many more options when it comes to Facebook ads. Again, retargeting, custom audiences, and not just spraying and praying, as I like to say, but really getting specific. It's pretty amazing when it comes to Facebook ads how you can target specifically, people, within a certain age range who make a certain income, who live within a specific zip code, who, fit the profile of really your ideal client, which is really, really incredible. Another big key that I think is important to social media isn't just what happens online, it's what happens offline. And I'm a huge believer of taking the online offline. So, for example, you see it's someone's birthday and you could be one of the 50 people that says happy birthday on their Facebook page, or you could be one of the one or two people that actually calls them on their birthday or sends them a text or, maybe a card a few days in advance. But really taking the online offline, I think there's some big, big opportunities. And a big tip to doing that is really creating a solid content strategy. Because I'm a big believer that it's not just enough to think about what social media platforms to be on, but really it's important to think about having a solid content strategy. And so we cover a lot of this in the 3rd chapter of my book. And one of the things we teach is this idea of how to use a content grid. And if you've seen me speak before, maybe you've been on some of my webinars before, you've probably heard me talk about this. But the content grid is something we talk a lot about in the book. It's something I created a few years ago. And it's basically a simple spreadsheet where there's about 30 ideas of content. So whether you're looking for content for your Facebook page, or you're looking for content to create video content or content for Facebook Live, the idea behind it is to give you some inspiration for content to post or to create. So we divided this up into 5 buckets. We have local real estate, national real estate, local and community, personal interest, and home and design. And local real estate is things like favorite feature of a new listing, pictures of your clients at the closing table. National real estate are things like links to articles from in the news or from your local association. Local and community might be, favorite photos of your favorite restaurants or boutiques, favorite family places to visit. Home and design might be before and after photos from staging. And so, again, giving you some ideas in terms of content, I think is really, really key. You can also download a free copy of this. I have it on my website at katielance.com. It's a free download, but it's also part of the book. And just in general, I think it's important, again, whether you're at the beginning stages or whether you're a little bit more advanced, having a content strategy is really, really key. And so how do you come up with a content plan? I always say start with brainstorm a list of topics. I love a notepad and pen as much as I love technology. I love paper and pen. So brainstorm a list of topics, decide how often you'd like to broadcast if you're doing Facebook Live or if you're blogging, how often you'd like to publish content. Consistency wins, right? So I would encourage you to really think about if you think you can broadcast or create a video or blog once a month, I would encourage you to step that up and see if you could do that twice a month or maybe even once a week. The more you can create content, the faster your success is going to be. We like to keep it simple. I recommend Google Calendar or Google Spreadsheet, and also repurposing existing content. So if you already have content on your website, maybe you have a section on your website that has to do with buyers and sellers, and maybe there's some really great information on there about, how to buy your first home or how to find a realtor. You might already have great content that could then get repurposed into a short video or a Facebook Live. I'm a big believer in repurposing things that you've already created, and that can make a big, big difference. One tip that we share in the book is this whole idea of 30 photos in 30 days. And when it comes to content, content doesn't have to be anything super complicated. It could just be great photos that you've taken on your phone. So imagine if you drive around your local community and you take 30 or so photos, and maybe it's a photo of the downtown Main Street, the historic building, your neighborhood park, your favorite coffee shop, pizza place, and then with these 30 photos, you can use an app or two to enhance them to look fun and interesting. And now you have 30 days worth of content that you can post to your social media channels. So again, the whole idea is just getting smarter about how you're using social media. A lot of our content, a lot of my content that I create, to be honest, is done right on my phone, just using an app or two to create some great content. So that's what's really exciting, I think. And in the book, we talk a lot about how to repurpose content across multiple platforms. So we talk a lot about this idea of, like I said a minute ago, creating pillar content, whether that's blog content, video content, Facebook Live content. And then how do you take that one blog post and then slice and dice that into 4 or 5 graphics that then get posted to Facebook today, and then Facebook again in 3 months, an Instagram today and Instagram again in a couple weeks, and tweet it a number of times. Maybe there's a Snapchat story about it or an Instagram story. But really thinking about how you sort of slice and dice your content, I think makes a really, really big difference. The other thing I think is important is creating content that's evergreen, right? So you might be creating content around your listings, which is great, but I would really encourage you to think about creating content that's evergreen, that's timeless. Whether it's content on, tips to get your home ready for the market, the biggest questions people ask you when it comes to real estate, your number one piece of advice when it comes to buying or selling a home. And that type of content really stands a test of time because it's the type of content you could share today on Facebook, but then share it again 3 months later, share it again 3 months after that, and even share it again next year. I think the big mistake a lot of agents and brokers make is they create a video or a piece of content and they only share it out once, right? And we think, well, I already put that on Facebook. Well, you can reshare that, not every day or every week, but depending on what it is, reshare that again a few months later. So again, sort of repurposing and repackaging content can make a big, big difference. Video, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but we are really in the golden age of video. Mark Zuckerberg said this at the end of last year, and we're seeing things like, obviously, all the video we're seeing on Facebook, Facebook 360 photos, Facebook Live. There's also Periscope. There's Twitter Live. There's Instagram Live. There's lots of opportunities to create video and live content, and especially when it comes to Facebook. So why Facebook Live? This is another one of my favorite quotes. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. And Facebook Live is one of those things where the first time you do it, you'll probably feel nervous. I know I was. But it's like anything else. The more you do it, the easier it gets. It becomes a little bit like a muscle. So as an agent or broker, why should you think about Facebook Live? I think it's an easier barrier to entry than recorded video because it's simple. Anybody can do it. It requires limited equipment. You could do it with your phone or your laptop computer or desktop. There's also something very personal about going live. It's a great way to create content quickly and easily. It can help tell the story of your brand, of what it feels like to work with you. It's unscripted, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And it's also a great way to build your organic reach, which is just kind of a fancy way of saying, when it comes to Facebook, a lot of times we feel like we have to pay money to boost our post or our advertising for people to really see our content. And right now in 2017, Facebook is really putting a lot of attention towards people who use Facebook Live. So whether you broadcast on your personal profile or your business page, you're going to get a higher number of people who are seeing your content, engaging with your content, and really interacting with you more so when you use Facebook Live. It's a great way to really build that reach. So to get started with Facebook Live, I've got a few tips here. We cover this in the book, but I would say the first thing is be prepared. Write down a few bullet points. I love to have just a little cheat sheet by me when I'm doing a Facebook Live. Think about your headline. Keep it catchy, short, descriptive. Start right away when you go live. Introduce yourself. Welcome people by name. Ask for people to share it. Ask for comments. You could say something like, hey, leave me a comment below if you're watching this live or you're watching the replay, and give some sort of call to action at the end. Right? Whenever I do a Facebook Live, I always like to think, well, what's the goal at the end? What am I asking people to do? So it could be as simple as, hey, for more information, go to, xyz.com or whatever it is, or post your questions below, and really giving a call to action, I think, is really, really key. Now, one thing when it comes to video, we talk about this in the book, is with Facebook, most people are watching video with the sound off on Facebook. And so I love to use, one of my favorite resources is a resource called rev.com. It's just the link, the website's right up here at the top. Rev.com is a great resource to take your videos and get captions or subtitle files, right? We probably all, I'm sure all of you have when watching Facebook and you've watched a video but you haven't really turned the sound on, and you see captions across the bottom. So for us, what we do, we have a weekly show. It's called the Get Social Smart Show. We started at the beginning of 2017. It's about a 2 or 3 minute video we do every week. So my team takes that video after it's completed, we upload it to rev.com, and we pay $1 a minute. So if it's a 3-minute video, we pay $3 for the subtitle file or the captions file, whatever it's called. They send it back to us in a couple hours. We go to Facebook, we upload our video, and then we can upload our captions file. So it's a great way to really have a videos with the captions that are running across the bottom. Now, Facebook does have an option to turn on captions, turn on closed captions on your video. I just have to say sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, sometimes they're accurate, and sometimes they're not. So I like using Rev.com because it's actually human transcription. There's actually humans that are transcribing it. But Facebook does have a version of it that's rolling out to business pages as we speak. Vertical video is here to stay, and I say this with kind of a big smile on my face because for years I would stand on stages and say, you've got to turn your phone when you're creating video, because we live in a widescreen world, right? We live in our laptops are widescreen, our TVs are widescreen, but vertical video right now is getting a lot of attention. Facebook and Instagram are supporting vertical video ads right now. We're seeing Instagram stories, we're seeing Snapchat. And so vertical video is a great way to kind of stand out from the competition, especially with just short videos. If you're doing quick 15 to 30-second videos, maybe you're just kind of doing a quick pan of a beautiful backyard or a beautiful downtown Main Street, vertical video can be a great option for that.
I just wanted to jump in quickly on the vertical video.
Yeah.
I was actually in an argument the other day with an agent who does a ton of video about how you can't do vertical. I'm like, no, it's back. They're optimizing for it. It is ready to go. But he was swearing by, like, he was sharing that. I'm sure you've seen the one of like the puppet with the vertical video, sharing that saying you should never do it. But no, it's here. It's doing really well.
I know. It's funny because I mean, I was for years and years I would always tell people turn your phone, and I still love. I think most of my video is usually done horizontally, but especially for short form video, that sort of 10-second, probably up to 30-second video, depending on what platform you're using. Vertical video is a huge thing right now, and it's getting a lot of attention from Facebook for sure.
Yeah, that's like anytime I do if it's a Facebook only video from my phone, I almost only do vertical now.
Yeah, me too. How times have changed, right?
Yeah.
That's why you got to stay up on it all.
Exactly.
So the fifth chapter that I want to share today, and obviously we don't have time to go through the whole book, but I wanted to share at least the first few chapters here, and we're going to open it up to questions in just a second. So if any of you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat, and we're going to take those in just a second. But you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And so a lot of what we talk about here today with content, whether it's vertical video or blogging or Facebook Live, we have a whole chapter about how to create an awesome headline. Because I think a headline, that's the main reason why we read something. It might be the main reason why you decided to join today for this webinar. It makes a really, really big deal. So a few tips when you're writing headlines: be specific, create urgency, make it memorable and powerful. Try to solve a problem with it, and ask yourself, is it useful? And I always like to say, speak to one person, right? Who's that one person that you really want to reach through your video or whatever it is that you're putting out there? And in the book, we have kind of sort of these examples here of really how to create a great headline. Making it really kind of a promise, a solution to a problem, right? How to blank that will help you increase blank. Why blank will make you better. So really kind of thinking through what your headlines are. Again, for video, for blog content, whatever that might be, it makes a big difference. I always say think about what you want to convey and put that into the headline. Thinking in terms of how to, or the top 3 ways to, ... especially when it comes to, I think, YouTube, a lot of us, I don't know about you, but I do this all the time. I'm always Googling, how do I ... right? And so, especially with YouTube, it can help tremendously to have kind of how-to videos. Or again, top 3 ways, top 5 ways, top 7 ways, things like that. We tend to, think in terms of numbers in a lot of ways. It's very consumable content for a lot of us. And again, telling people what's in it for them. If you're doing Facebook Live or any kind of live broadcasting, once you've introduced yourself, tell viewers what they're going to learn, what's in it for them, which I think is really, really key. And at the end of the day, as we've heard, if you've been to any real estate conference, you've probably heard this: people do business with people they know, like, and trust, right? And I really think when it comes to social media, I've had a good friend who also speaks in the social media space, and he has said many times that not only do people do business with people they know, like, and trust, but they do business with people they relate to. And I think social media allows us to be relatable. It allows us to relate to other people. And the great news is, you don't have to be all things to all people. You don't have to relate to everybody. I find, and I'm sure you see this, Andrew, that agents and brokers who really just lean into who they are and who they're not attract people they want to work with, right? I always say like attracts like, and that's, I think, really, really powerful. I just put in here a quick little screenshot of the table of contents because I don't know about you, but whenever I buy a book, I always want to like sneak a peek inside. I'm the one who's always looking at the table of contents. So just if you're curious what it's all about, we really go into, again, kind of the nuts and bolts, how to create a content strategy. Again, I kind of created it with sort of the dummies book in mind. So we have a lot of people who read it start to finish, and other people who just, skip right to the Facebook ads chapter or right to the LinkedIn chapter or whatever it might be. And then we have case studies and resources at the end of the book as well. So if you go to getsocialsmartbook.com, and I know Andrew's going to talk about a little giveaway we're going to do in a second, but if you go to getsocialsmartbook.com, you can actually download a free chapter and check that out. And you'll also get added to our email newsletter list. We put out some great free tips each and every week. So you'll get a free chapter of that, and that's also where you can order a copy. We have a paperback version. We're also a Kindle version now, which is exciting too. So if you're more of an ebook reader, that just came out last week, which is pretty exciting. And then I also have my website up here, katielance.com. We've got lots of free resources there, and I just put my email up there also. So we're going to take questions in a minute, but if I don't get to your question, feel free to reach out to me afterwards as well. So with that being said, Andrew, I don't know if we have any questions or not, but
we do. So I picked up a lot before from people who couldn't make it for the time. So I have a list of questions there. Some were answered during.
Yeah.
I have some questions there. First, I put the link in the chat for the book on Amazon.ca because I know most of the people here are Canadian, so I just wanted to put the .ca version of the book. But we also have here 6 copies we're going to give out. So I bought a bunch of copies myself. I have some I'm keeping for me, so I can keep going through and making notes from. So we're going to give away 6. So to get your copy, it's pretty simple. You have to go on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter and tag both Katie and myself with something you learned today from the webinar. And the first 6 people who do that, I will mail them a copy of the book. So, but you have to make sure you tag us, otherwise I won't know to contact you to get your information to send you a copy of the book. All right?
Awesome. I love it.
Here we go. Okay, so it's the question. So first one that I got, which they wanted your opinion on, was Snapchat versus Instagram versus Facebook stories. Which would you do? Would you bring content like from one to the other or different for each? How do you kind of handle the 3 different versions of it there?
Yeah, I know we're kind of on stories overload, right? There's Snapchat, and then Instagram kind of copied them, and then Facebook, of course, was right behind them. It's a good question. I mean, I've seen some people do both, where they're kind of putting the same content across multiple platforms, and I've tried a bunch of different things. I have found that all 3 of those platforms, like the purpose, in my opinion, of those 3 platforms is to be spontaneous, right? To kind of showcase things that are happening in the moment, whether it's sort of like the sneak peek behind the scenes as you're kind of out and about. And when you start to replicate that 2 times, 3 times, it doesn't feel very in the moment. It feels like I'm just replicating what I'm doing here, right? So I would recommend, and one of the things I've been trying to do is to really kind of think about who your audience is and create content on different platforms. So I'll just give you an example. For me, how I use Snapchat, I like Snapchat because it's much smaller. I'm only connected to, I don't know, probably a few dozen or so people I know really, really well. So it's a little bit of a smaller, more intimate platform for me. And I'm sharing kind of a sneak peek as I'm traveling or, doing webinars, or I'm out with my kids and kind of, I have fun with the filters and things like that. I find with Instagram is still is a much more aspirational platform in general, right? It's the beautiful photos, videos. I tend to have a bigger audience on Instagram. So for me, I use Instagram as more of a teaching platform, and I like to share beautiful things that are kind of out and about through my day. So, and to be honest with Facebook Stories, I've played around a little bit with it. I don't know if Facebook Stories is really going to stick, which is funny because it's Facebook, right? But there's so much happening on Facebook that I just feel like for a lot of people, especially if they're, all my marketing friends are on Facebook stories, but I have to say everyone else, they just kind of ignore what's happening
Yeah,
on
I don't go
Facebook
on them at
stories.
all.
So, who knows? A year from now, it could change. I think right now the big heavy hitters are Snapchat and Instagram stories. They're just throwing right punches to each other, back and forth, back and forth. Um, but that's what I would recommend is really think about it. And you don't necessarily have to be on all three. I think I'm on primarily those two because I find that those are my kind of two primary audiences. But if you like one of those platforms, I would say at least pick one and really think about your strategy with at least one of them. So I just recommend that versus replicating content, because what'll happen, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, Andrew, but I find I'm connected to a lot of people on all these different platforms. So then I see them on Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook, and it's like you see the same thing everywhere, and it doesn't feel as authentic, right? It just feels like,
Yeah,
well, you're just saving stuff and re-up. And I
exactly.
get it, every once in a while I do that with some things, but um, I don't know. I just think thinking about that specific platform and being intentional about how you use it differently, I think is important.
Which kind of actually ties in well to the next question. And I know definitely my feelings on it, and there's strong feelings on the topic. But should you have an auto post from one platform to another? Like if you make a post on your Facebook page, it automatically goes to your Twitter.
um, I definitely say no.
Yep.
And I mean, some people might disagree, but I'm just, yeah, and I'm glad you agree with me. But I just think every social media platform is different. And I kind of equate it to, different cultures, different, I mean, just different languages. I always think like there's English in the UK, there's English in Australia, there's English in the US, there's English in Canada, but they're all slightly different, right?
No.
And it's kind of the same with social media. Like how I talk on Facebook is different than how I talk on Twitter, and it's different than how I talk on Instagram, which is why I don't necessarily think an agent has to be on, 12 different platforms. I think you pick one or two and you get smart about those one or two. But I think it definitely can make a big difference to just if you're going to be on a couple platforms, don't just like blast it everywhere, but think about how you're posting it on Facebook and then take a moment to post it to wherever else you're going to post it. It just, it makes a big difference, because if you just push it everywhere, and I see this happen all the time. I'm on Twitter and I can see that people are just auto posting. It's the perception that the lights are on, but nobody's home, right?
Yep.
And
They're
like
never going to respond.
they're never going to respond, right? And I think that's worse than not being there at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, when I start like with a new client, when I'm doing like the audit of what they have, most of the time we end up shutting down most of their other accounts, especially Twitter. Most of them are always using Twitter wrong.
Yeah,
It's a shame
exactly.
because it's one of my favorite ones.
Me too, right.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, here's some other questions. So another question, but we didn't touch on, maybe it's in the book a bit more, but in terms of groups, would you start a group if you were an agent? So I know a lot of marketers have them, things like
Yeah.
that. So like for me, they've been very valuable. I'm sure your groups have been as well for you. But from
Hmm.
an agent, would you start one or would you just join them?
Well, part of it kind of depends on how much bandwidth they have, because it a group is something that definitely takes time to manage. Like anytime you add on any platform, it's one extra layer of like what's your strategy with that platform, right? So I mean, I think I would recommend for an agent, like really get a handle on your personal profile and how you connect with people and build relationships on your personal profile and your business page. And then I think the group is sort of that next layer, because a group is obviously a lot different than a page, right? A page is For an agent, I think a page is a great place to do your advertising and promote your listings and promote your business and build your email list and generate leads. the group is like the group is like a crock pot. Like it's like a slow boil, right? And the best groups are typically community groups. Like for example, I'm part of a group here for my local neighborhood that a local realtor started. And anytime there's like we had July 4th recently, so like there was a bunch of fireworks, and all my neighbors were like, "Oh my gosh, there's fireworks!" Right? They're posting in the group, or there's a community garage sale or a lost dog. It's all in the group. And what I find the agent does really well is like actually, I think it's a couple people that do it. They will tag other people to kind of bring them into the conversation. So if someone's looking for a contractor, they're like, oh yeah, you should contact so and so or so and so, and they're really kind of like facilitating this great conversation. And everybody kind of knows, oh, it's run by this real estate company, so it's very subtle.
Yeah.
Um, and but again, you kind of have to be in it over the course of time, right? You have to be willing to kind of put in that effort. I do think to start, being a part of groups is great. If you're an agent and you search your local community and see if there's some local community groups, that can be really valuable. You just want to make sure you look at the rules. A lot of times I see an agent join a group and like the first post is, "Hey, I've got a new listing." So it's
There's even
better to
some
be.
gurus who like tell you to spam groups, and I'm like, no,
No, oh,
don't
that's
do
terrible
that.
advice. No,
I know.
that's the fastest way to get kicked out of a group.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that method.
No, I think the best way to use groups is just to be a helpful voice. Like,
Yeah.
I know you and I are in a lot of groups, and just, people ask questions about, things that we can help with. We'll jump in, but we're not like, and hey, contact me today. It's
Yeah,
just
that's the worst way to do groups.
exactly.
We have a question here live. So, who are the top real estate agents and agencies to follow for Instagram stories and Snapchat? I have one that's really good for Instagram stories I follow. She does a lot of Amy Youngren.
Oh
She
yeah.
does a lot of great ones. I don't know
hmm
about you if you have some good suggestions there.
Yeah, Amy's great. She does a lot of great stuff with Instagram stories. There's probably a few people. I like following Nikki Beauchamp. She's a broker in New York. I love New York City, and she's always doing Instagram stories about New York City, which I think is pretty awesome. Um, Tom Ferry. Probably a lot of you guys follow Tom Ferry. He's doing a lot of great stuff on Instagram stories. Um, Also, there's a really great agent in Chicago I've gotten to know really well through. I first got to know her on Snapchat. She's really big on Snapchat and Instagram, but Sonia Figueroa. She's a she's in Chicago. I want to make sure I say in the right city, but she's great. She does a lot on Snapchat and on Instagram stories also. Um, and then also both on Snapchat and Instagram stories, there's a great agent here in Silicon Valley. Kind of in the San Francisco Bay Area, Alex Wang. Um, and I don't remember his exact handle, but it's if you search Alex Wang Silicon Valley, you'll probably find him. He does a lot of great stuff just on Snapchat and Instagram stories. And I found by talking to a lot of agents and brokers who do either Snapchat or Instagram stories that again it's like this smaller network. And for a lot of them, when I've asked the question of like, okay, what's the ROI? Are you getting business from it? It's not necessarily from connecting with other clients on those channels, but it's connecting with the other realtors who are on those channels, the other agents and brokers who are on those channels. Because it's a smaller network, it's become kind of this like great little referral network because it's small, at least for right now. So yeah.
So actually, on kind of the interesting one that you brought up there briefly, and so like I know like New York City, it's really cool to see. Like we have someone on the call now who's from Bahamas, which is great content for Snapchat stories, things like that. Now, if you're like from a town like mine, which is like kind of a boring suburb basically, and you
Yeah.
don't have cool things like New York and Chicago or Bahamas or recreational properties, what
Yeah.
kind of content would you be sharing if you kind of lived in a quote unquote boring place?
Yes. I mean, I can kind of relate. I always say San Francisco Bay Area, but I'm not in San Francisco. I'm like in the suburbs, right? So,
Yeah.
um, if I was in that kind of situation and I was an agent or broker, I probably would just sort of share insights and tips. I mean, even like my friend Alex, who I just mentioned a second ago, even though he's in Silicon Valley, like his snaps aren't necessarily about like, oh, look at Facebook headquarters. It's more of he's in the car, he's out and about, he just had a call with a client and he's sharing something really valuable. And just kind of being that source of information of sharing valuable tips and just kind of as you're out and about throughout your day. I mean, one of my good agent friends, she's a realtor in Texas, and she said something to me recently. She said, I try to just be really like hyper aware of things that happen to me during the day, especially when it comes to real estate, and just try to share like little tidbits and lessons learned and questions that she gets asked all the time. And she finds that that's a really easy thing. Like she's in her car, she's on the way to an appointment, she can do a couple quick Snapchats, and it's just I think, emphasizing like her expertise and her knowledge. And it's not necessarily about her local community. You know, it's about being that sort of voice of knowledge about real estate in her local market, if that makes sense.
Yeah. One that I've seen that worked well in an area like that as well was they were doing like a Humans of New York style thing where they showcase like different people in town and just they found other ways besides just like the town and the scenery to
Hmm.
showcase cool things locally, which was kind of fun and everyone likes seeing themselves in something.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great idea. In fact, actually, there's a really great agent um, in Naples, Florida, that does that really well. Sue Benson. She's known as the Pink Lady of Real Estate. She's always wearing pink, and she has moved to Naples. She's new, fairly new, like a few years ago, and she does a lot of Snapchats and Facebook Lives where she's highlighting local business owners, and it's been a great way for her to really like position herself as kind of like the go-to agent in the area. And she's been able to build these great relationships, and then they share her content. So it's a really great thing to do.
Great. There's like two questions. Do you have time for like two more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So one, it's kind of like a double question, but how do you respond to people who are responding negatively to your posts? And part two would be, what if it's especially it's like a review on your Facebook page that you can't delete?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, if it's something super negative, I mean, I guess it depends on what it is. I try to, I'll try to respond. I think it happens every once in a blue moon. Everybody gets a negative comment. I'll try to respond. I always feel like you're never gonna win, right? Like you're never gonna change like someone's mind if they're really irritated or mad. So I think it's best to like, especially if you're running a Facebook ad and maybe somebody comments negatively, like just respond, say, hey, thanks for your comment. I'm sorry you feel that way, whatever. And it's more so, I think, not to necessarily change that person's mind, but for anybody else who sees it, I think it's powerful to see a response. I mean, I feel that way with any kind of review. When it comes to Facebook reviews, and I've dealt with this with a lot of agents where, they've got somebody who is just disgruntled and left them, a one-star review or something. And there's not a whole lot you can do about that, unfortunately. You can take off reviews completely from your Facebook page, but I don't know if that's necessarily the right answer. What you can do is I always recommend, like, if you have a one-star review or two-star or a negative review, reach out to the last like 5 or 10 people who loved you and ask them if they will leave you a review on Facebook. Because when you start to get a bunch of new reviews, the old one is still there, but it gets pushed way down versus being like, oh, one of the top featured ones on your Facebook business page. So I also think too, like when I go, I don't know if you're this way, Andrew, but when I'm like shopping or looking for a hotel or whatever, like you sort of expect to have a couple negative reviews. I mean, if there's, 50 reviews and one's negative, it almost makes you, I don't know, makes them feel like a little bit more real than, oh, they're, it's 100% perfect. So
Yeah, that's because like I know people buy reviews all the time, and it's so easy to do. So I always like the ones that aren't quite perfect reviews. They bring
exactly.
it down a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And the last question which came up, this is one that asked someone because they couldn't make it, is how would you use Snapchat geo filters in your business? I guess as an agent.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've actually seen some agents do this really well. There's a good agent friend of mine. She runs a brokerage in Arizona. I think it's called JK Realty. I don't know if you've heard of them. But she and her company, they do a really great job with geo filters. So with their clients, if their clients are active on Snapchat, and obviously not everybody's active on Snapchat, but they're really big on Snapchat, and if they connect with their clients on Snapchat, when their clients move in on moving day, they will have a geo filter for that day for their clients. And
Interesting.
so and it always surprises, and it's like, it's like a huge surprise. It's like, oh my gosh, we have a geo filter for our house for today, for move-in day, and nobody else does that, right?
Yeah, that's actually
Um,
awesome. I haven't heard that one before.
yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I know of hardly any other agents who are doing anything like that. And now with Snapchat's latest update, I haven't tried this yet, but apparently you can make geofilters right from the app, which is great. And I think they start at like 5.99 or something.
Yeah, they're
And you
pretty
can,
cheap for what they
yeah,
do.
yeah, totally. I've also seen it. Actually, one of my good friends is an agent up in Canada, in your neck of the woods. I've seen them like for a client appreciation party where he had a big party, I don't know, 3 or 4 hour party, and he had a geo filter just for the party. And so he took all of his Snapchats using that filter, and obviously, it was great because everybody else was able to, who was on Snapchat was able to use it also. And then after the party, downloaded his whole Snap story, turned that into a video, repurposed that, for other platforms. And then, of course, I've seen agents who have used him for other local events. Like if there's a local, like here in my area, every Friday in the summer, there's like concert in the park, right? So I've seen some agents who have created a filter for specific local things. So.
Yeah, that's most of the ones I've seen are just they do them at like local events that are happening, and they just add it in for people to use with a little branding on it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it can
Yeah,
work well.
definitely. Yeah, and it's interesting, the analytics. Like once you run a filter, you can see how many people have used it. And I think it's like anything else. People have asked me, well, how effective is it? It's like, well, I think we're still really, really early in the game when it comes to filters. So in a lot of ways, it's almost like Facebook. You can spend $20 and see what happens. See how many people click on it or whatnot. But um, yeah, I think there's a unique opportunity, especially if your clients, um, you know, are on Snapchat.
Yeah, especially if you're selling like condos in a city where most of them would be on it. That's
Right.
huge potential.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, awesome. So do you have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
No, I mean, I thank you again, Andrew, for inviting me on today, and this has been awesome. And I just thank everybody who has been here live, or again, if you're listening to the recording. And I'm just happy to answer any questions if any of you are watching this and you want to, chat with me or pick my brain, or feel free to email me. I'm happy to chat anytime. So yes, I
Great.
just appreciate it.
And we really appreciate you spending your time taking it. I know you're very busy, so I'm very happy that you're able to take the time out and help us out and kind of give the tips that you did. So it's great.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right. Thank you very much, Katie. And everyone, remember, get a copy of her book. And I know I've seen a few notifications come through that some of you have tagged me. I don't know if all the books are spoken for yet because I haven't checked. But if they're not, then make sure to post and tag Katie and myself, and you can get a copy of the book. And you can also go and buy your own copy as well.
Awesome.
Everyone, thanks for coming out. I appreciate it.